Skills really has been a hot topic. I think your firm has been one of the leaders speaking about this. And what is kind of we're going into a new year, we've got all this innovation, a lot of it touching on skills. Where's your head at with, what's coming next for people in that area? In skills, yeah.
Yeah. So I think we've been talking about skills for a while. It was a pipe dream for quite a while. I think with the advent of AI and Gen AI and some of the things that have come out recently, it's actually becoming a reality. So before it really was a hypothetical discussion. What if we had the data to understand who had what skills in the organization? And what if we could organize that and use that data to make better decisions? But now there's technology that can help us do that. And so I see maybe a strengthening of the skills position. We did a study earlier this year on skills tech, what's going on in that space. We have identified about 80 vendors that are playing in that space. I'm sure that isn't all of them. But 80 of them are identified. And the interesting thing was the things that they're doing right now aren't particularly sexy, but they're so important to set up sort of the next level of what can happen with it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So right now it's all about building taxonomies and making sure that you understand the skills and aligning with your current structure in your organization, all those types of things, and those are good and necessary things. But I do think that we're getting closer to maybe breaking away from an org chart and being able to say, all right, let's organize some people around this piece of work we have instead of organizing the work around the people systems that we currently have in place.
So for HR leaders that are used to the org chart, kind of used to doing it that way, is this shift kind of like two parts, kind of like philosophical and then how do we do it? And text seems to be the best way because it's such a granular process.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for people that are kind of deciding like how they want to move forward and make a decision for their own organization on skills?
Yeah, I have two pieces of advice. The first piece of advice is don't try and do it pen and paper. You actually do need technology to do this. And the second piece of advice is to start with things that are small. So we have noticed that some organizations do skills for skills' sake, because skills is a thing, and that's just stupid. It takes a lot of time and effort to do it. And so unless you have specific use cases that you're trying to solve, and there are many really good companies that do have those specific use cases, it's kind of a waste of time. So are you trying to retain people? Are you trying to move people from one part of the organization to another? Are you trying to make sure that people have the right skills and therefore it's feeding into your L&D systems to give them the right information and opportunities? What is it that you're actually trying to solve? And that does two things. First of all, it makes sure you're not wasting your time. But secondly, it helps you get buy-in from the rest of the organization to make sure that the skills journey can continue, because it is a skills journey. We've talked to many leaders in our podcast, Workplace Stories, about implementing skills, and every single one of them begins the podcast with, well, we're just getting started. We're not very far down the road, because nobody is. It's a relatively new thing. But there's so much runway, so many things that we can do before we've reached nirvana.
So what do you think, if everyone kind of feels like they're at the beginning, what do you think is like the big motivator that people, it's kind of unknown what makes everybody want it? I mean, it's a big population that wants to invest in it, build the tech, and use it at work. What's the motivator behind it?
I think the motivator is better decisions. So for a really long time, we've used the good old HR gut check, you know what I mean, to make decisions about opportunities that people get and where they move in the organization and all these types of things. If you think about it, skills isn't really skills, it's skills data. It's smaller pieces of data about what someone can do and how they can contribute to your organization. So if we can harness that and figure out what the heck is going on within the walls of our organization, we can make all kinds of different decisions. How we invest in learning and development, who gets moved into what positions, all of those things become fodder for better decisions for the individual themselves and also the organization.
And it's interesting, this is a question I've really been interested in, and you kind of touched on this, how data, I mean, in so many manifestations, how that influences the HR role.
Yeah.
Plenty of people probably thought, I'm getting into HR 10, 20, even 5 years ago, and maybe didn't think of themselves as a data person, but it's clear that that's changing. So what are your thoughts on that?
I think everybody needs to be data literate to some extent. I also think we're seeing more organizations develop a people analytics function, and HR needs to work hand in glove with the people analytics function to make sure that they're asking the right questions and getting the right information to make those better decisions. I think it's crucial.
And you mentioned the podcast, which I think is a really great way for people to get access to your research and hear from clients that you're working with. will you tell us a little bit more about that so people can tune in if they want to hear it?
Yeah, absolutely. The podcast started right before I delivered my son 3.5 years ago, and it was kind of Stacia Gar, my business partner. She sort of drove it. I was like, I don't know, podcast? Okay, yeah, whatever. But during the course of this podcast, we release an episode every 2 weeks. We have the opportunity to talk to these really smart, forward-thinking HR professionals that are doing something, you know what I mean? And it's not like a quick 10-minute discussion, tell me about, what's working well. We dive deep and we figure out what's working and what's not working, and hopefully provide advice to those that are sort of heading down that path so it's easier for the next sort of generation of organizations doing that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I hear from a lot of people when I go to conferences or just readers that they really want to hear from someone that's done it, because the practitioners kind of know the realities. And you make a great point that we need to pass on that institutional knowledge. Even though things may change and work is going to look different, we've been in the trenches for a while, and people need to know that. So great that I'm sure your podcast is going to get.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the really great things about HR professionals. It's like you share, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Even if we're competitors, I'm going to share that information because it's good for the good of the organization. But we're all people. We care about the people that we serve, and so the better the more information we have, the better we can serve those people.
As you talk to HR leaders and with your clients and even amongst your team, what are kind of the vision for the workforce? Like, let's say we're back here in 10 years.
Yeah.
Is this all going to be different, or do you think we're still going to be? So yeah, I'd like to hear about that.
Yeah, I think it'll all be different. I think for a really long time we've done what we've done because we've done what we've done. Like, there's a lot of momentum behind the ways that we do things and the way that we measure things, and even the freaking GDP is sort of measured on these sort of antiquated ways of measuring work. I think we're at a point where that might change. I am imagining that in the next little while we're going to get really smart and start breaking down jobs into all the things that sort of comprise that job, or even tasks into all of the things that comprise those tasks, and determine whether it can be better done by a machine that does repetitive stuff, or whether it's done by an individual that needs different types of skills. Critical thinking being one of those that is surfacing a lot in the conversations that I'm having. So I really think it's going to change the way that we sort of organize work within the organization, which is going to require the tech industry to also change. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that lately. It could mean the end to the platform. You know what I mean? We've worked with platforms for so long. We need this platform because all our data lives on this platform. With the agents that we're seeing and some of the developments that we're seeing, that could go away. It might be that the internal IT department is all about chaining together a whole bunch of really smart agents that get us the exact system that we need and that works exactly the right way with the people and the skills that they have, rather than purchasing 4 or 5 big platforms and stitching them together so that they speak to each other. I don't know.
It's fascinating. So I have 2 follow-up questions on that.
Okay.
One, I feel like that could really change the work day. Like, as a worker, if you have a list of tasks or something along that line, does it really need to be structured in a work day? And I know we've seen that with the pandemic, a lot of that's changed, but I feel like we're still trying to fit into that work day.
Yeah, I think so too.
So to speak. So do you feel like it could change the pattern of our daily lives when it comes to work?
I think it could. I am very grateful for the flexibility that I have in my day, I'm not going to lie. But I also find it creeping into other things, and so I'm not sure that it's a positive thing that it could change the rhythms of our days. You know, what I mean? I was talking to a colleague in a different organization, and she's like, they're based in Sweden, I live in California, I'm on the phone all the time. I think we as people, I'm hoping that this sort of like, I hope we're at a junction now where we can actually take a look at the idea of being human and figure out what we need to nurture ourselves and give ourselves permission to actually nurture ourselves in the bigger scope of things. That's my hope. I don't know if we're going there, but
it's fascinating that we're here talking about tech, and we're really like, we've got to claim our space and
for sure
take care of ourselves. You know, that is total food for thought. I feel like you could do a podcast on that for sure. Get some psychologists in there. That sounds so interesting. The other thing I wanted to bring up is when I was walking through the casino this morning, I overheard 2 people talking, and I couldn't see that, so I don't know what company they were from, but the guy was telling the lady, here's what I do in my day, and he was like, most of my job is working with current customers because in the era of the cloud, innovation comes so fast, there's more tools and resources than any of our clients know how to use, and so I'm trying to train them up or make them available. I was like listening in one ear, but I thought, imagine how much is out there that we're not taking advantage of, and if there is going to be time to catch up with it, or if this is just how it's going to be, and in HR we're going to have to be learning constantly about new innovations.
Yeah. Do you want my opinion on that?
Yeah.
I think we're all chasing all the things all the time.
Yep.
And I'm not sure we should be. I think maybe we should look for things that serve us. We did a podcast. I can't tell you who it was because we need to make sure that it's vetted. But he said something really interesting. He said, I have a no non-productivity rule in my organization. Like if it's going to be non-productive, we don't use that tool, even if there's a learning curve to get there.
Yep.
And he used the case of a chatbot, right? So if it takes you time to ask the chatbot and the chatbot returns something, and then I have to check what the chatbot said to make sure that the chatbot was correct. Did it really save me any time? Did it really serve the organization? Did it really serve me?
Yep.
Or was it just a complete waste of time? And I think a lot of these things are, unfortunately, right now, time wasters. And so I think we have to develop some, we have to develop some willpower to stay away from the new and shiny and focus on what we're actually trying to get done.
Yeah.
And then put in the tools that we know are going to help rather than chasing all the things all the time.